Be advised, we got code red in my building.
Chaos as a teen accused in a carjacking takes cover inside a city school with a loaded gun. Our team questions if our schools are safe after he slipped in. A crime bill gridlock in Annapolis.
We haven't seen you come out and say, we need to get this done.
Our team presses the governor on what he's doing to keep Marylanders safe as the legislative session winds down. Concerns of victims' rights being ignored answered with a ruling in the world-famous Adnan Syed case. New tonight, we examine how recent cases are sparking the debate. Registered sex offenders living across the street from schools.
We really need to do a better job about supervising sex offenders.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks into a new bill aiming to make that illegal and protect your children. Then, preserving the Boost program, the fight to keep scholarship funding for low-income families to seek the education they want for their children.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. This year's legislative session wraps up in less than 2 weeks, and recent events are bringing the issues of gun violence and repeat offenders to the forefront in Annapolis.
2 more shootings happened today in Baltimore. One of them was deadly. A 42-year-old man was killed just after 5:15 this evening along Pulaski Highway in West Baltimore.
A major drug bust this week could put more than 30 people behind bars, and new information shows many of them have been in legal trouble not once, not twice, but dozens of times.
A court records show 12 of those charged recently are repeat offenders, several of whom were arrested during Marilyn Mosby's time as Baltimore City State's attorney.
And 2 of those men arrested at least 30 times before. Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says there needs to be a higher level of accountability.
People being arrested many times, and justice is not either being served or their cases are not coming to fruition, with them either being prosecuted and or convicted.
Well, tonight we have team coverage of the crime crisis in Baltimore. Rebecca Pryor has the judicial perspective, as a recent ruling could be a major victory for victims' rights.
But we begin with Mackenzie Frost and the legislative side of the issue. She questioned Governor Wes Moore about his talks with lawmakers and progress or lack thereof so far on bills intended to help reduce crime.
We tried multiple times to get a direct answer from Governor Wes Moore, but he's pretty good at skirting those questions.
Good morning.
For the first week of session, Governor Wes Moore has said public safety is a priority, touting the work while on national TV
To reduce violence in the state of Maryland, that it is working.
Fast forward to now, with less than 2 weeks left, and not much has been passed to curb violent crime. We pressed the governor on what he's done to put pressure on the General Assembly.
Have you used your position in the governor's office to really lobby and push lawmakers to move forward on some of those bills?
Yeah, I've been very clear with not just legislators, but with also people throughout the state that the #1 priority for any chief executive has got to be making sure that your people are safe.
Not really a specific answer, but more points to money he's allocated to law enforcement agencies to help with resources. One resource Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates says he needs is a bill he's pushing to raise the maximum penalty on misdemeanor gun possession.
He's struggled to get this legislation through. Why not come out and say this needs to happen?
Yeah, no, well, I know this has had a difficult time throughout the legislature, and I know that we've got to be able to both get the illegal guns off of our streets. We need to focus on how we're increasing penalties for people who are carrying around illegal guns.
But tackling illegal guns and repeat offenders, there are bills in the legislature to do that, but we haven't seen you come out and say, we need to get this done.
Yeah, well, you have seen us working with the legislature, and at the same time, I want to see bills make it to my desk that are going to focus on keeping our communities safe.
Lawmakers spending a significant portion of the 90-day session debating Senate Bill 1, looking to curtail where legal gun owners can bring their firearms, stemming from the Bruin decision from the U.S. Supreme Court.
Do you think the lawmakers are wasting their time with that when they could be using their time to go after repeat violent offenders and those illegal guns?
They are not mutually exclusive conversations. I think we can, as a state, we can and we should do both.
What bill will target illegal guns right now in the General Assembly?
Well, I think as the General Assembly is going through its process, the thing that I want them to know is that the resources that we're putting coming in to be able to focus on increasing intelligence sharing, making sure that we are having license plate readers, so we're keeping these illegal guns out of the state of Maryland. I'm anxious to see what the legislature is going to do on their side to be able to make sure that they're continuing to match the efforts that we're trying to do on the executive branch side.
Do you think that they're doing that right now?
I'm eager to see what makes it through the legislature because I want the legislature and their push and their efforts to continue to match the push that our administration has on making sure these illegal guns stay out of our neighborhoods.
Is that happening?
I'm anxious to see what makes it through the legislative process.
Yes or no?
I'm anxious to see what makes it through the legislative process.
Again, not a yes or no answer, and that legislative process is quickly wrapping up. Right now, few bills to see measurable success with curbing crime are going to make it to the governor's desk.
The last day of session is April 10th, and there have been other bills introduced, like the Violent Firearms Offender Act, that would crack down on those repeat offenders and implement tougher penalties. But it doesn't appear as if there's enough political will or support to move on it. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie mentioned Ivan Bates' gun bill, part of his larger goal to move away from lenient sentences across the board, a contrast to his predecessor, Marilyn Mosby. And some prosecutors argue, in addition to lenient sentences, the overall judicial process is often overlooking victims. In a recent win for victims' rights, Adnan Syed's case is going back to court. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is live right now with more on how this ruling could reframe how courts look at victims' rights in those cases. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, legal experts that I spoke with today say too often in Baltimore City, victims are being treated as an afterthought instead of a priority. But now they say this ruling serves as a powerful reminder that victims have rights too.
Following his high-profile release last September, Adnan Syed's murder conviction now reinstated.
Good morning and welcome to the Appellate Court of Maryland.
On Tuesday, a Maryland appeals court deciding a new hearing will be held about the evidence used to vacate Syed's conviction, this time with Hayman Lee's family in the room.
We really see this as a great victory for victims' rights.
The ruling finding a lower court had violated the rights of Hayman Lee's brother, Young Lee, who was only given 1 day's notice to prepare for the hearing. The Lee family attorney, Steve Kelly, calling the decision a win for more than just the Lee family.
Victims' rights before were kind of a matter of convenience, but now no more. Victims' rights are real, and there are consequences to not affording them their right.
Too often judges are in such a hurry to rush through these dispositions that they're listening to the prosecutors and the defense attorneys and are literally ignoring the interests and the voices of victims. That has to stop.
Former state and federal prosecutor Thuru Vignarajah says he's represented victims placed in similar situations.
This is crazy.
Including the case of convicted arsonist Luther Trent.
I went to the side of the house, start pouring gasoline on the side of the house, and lit the side of the house on fire.
Then City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby giving Trent a plea deal after burning down his ex-girlfriend's home with her and her roommates inside. As a result, he served less than 6 months behind bars, admitting to Fox 45 he should have served more time.
I shouldn't be out right now.
Shortly after that interview, federal prosecutors bringing their own charges. Then the plea deal with Mosby's office thrown out. The Maryland judge ruling the victims' rights were violated when they didn't give their victim statements before sentencing. Trent eventually receiving a 12-year federal sentence and a 22-year state sentence.
We know this is a high-volume jurisdiction where the dockets are clogged and there's a lot of cases to go through, but you don't sacrifice victims of violent crimes.
Vignarajah now hopes the spotlight on these high-profile cases will keep all future victims from having to suffer in silence.
The prosecutors, the police, the judges, the system is supposed to make sure that their voices are elevated. And unfortunately, that's not the way victims' families feel in Baltimore right now.
Now, with these cases in mind, I reached out to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office tonight asking if moving forward they'll be reevaluating how victims' rights are served in Baltimore City. As of news time tonight, though, I have not heard back. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. We'd like to know what you think. Do you believe lawmakers in Annapolis are taking the crime crisis seriously? So far, 97% of those who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
New tonight, Charles County police say they confiscated a replica gun, ammo, and marijuana from a 12-year-old inside a middle school this afternoon. Since the child is under 13, they will not face any criminal charges under Maryland law. They could face discipline from the school, though. That Charles County case today nearly identical to what we reported in January when a 12-year-old was said to have brought a gun to school in Anne Arundel County. Police sent Fox 45 News 7 pages worth of crimes they say were committed by children under 13, including assault, animal abuse, and even rape. Well, just yesterday, Baltimore police say a 15-year-old accused of carjacking an Uber driver led them into a nearby high school where he bypassed security and hid with a loaded gun. The incident prompting fresh concern over school security, of course. Fox 45's Keith Daniels has been digging into how that armed student was able to get into the school so easily. Keith?
Well, Mary, we're told the suspect apparently knew where to go. In the words of the school principal, he was able to avoid the school's usual security measures. And tonight, a closer look at how school police responded. Tonight, how did it happen? A 15-year-old carjacking suspect with a loaded gun able to bypass security measures at Carver High School and slip into a classroom trying to escape police. How school police responded, heard on Baltimore City School Police dispatch audio obtained by Fox 45 News. The officers working with Foxtrot, the city's police helicopter unit, just moments after the intruder entered the building. Listen.
Be advised, we got code red in my building. We got Baltimore City SWAT team running through.
Foxtrot on school police.
Go ahead.
Units in county areas had a carjacking pursuit. The suspect ran into the back of Carver High School. Number 1 male in a purple hoodie.
75 Adams. We're locking down.
Tense moments at the school. A student sharing this picture, she says, was taken of an armed officer in the school. It happened Tuesday. Baltimore City Police say officers were working the carjacking of an Uber driver along West Fayette Street that morning when they spotted the wanted vehicle. Baltimore County's aviation unit followed the car, then City Police, before they say the suspect, a 15-year-old Carver High School student, ditched the car, ran into the back door of the school, then slipped into a classroom, apparently a place where he thought he could blend in.
7-1, we got him.
7-1, where you got him at?
We upstairs.
The suspect caught, but the capture triggering questions over school security. We pressed Sergeant Clyde Boatwright, president of the Baltimore City Schools Police Union, for answers.
Our schools are safe. We do have a number of security measures in place.
Well, then how does a student get into a school with a loaded gun and then goes to a classroom? How does that happen?
Well, there are a number of factors.
Did somebody drop the ball? Did security drop the ball?
No, I don't think that there was, where anyone made any mistakes in this. The adults in this case did exactly what they were supposed to do. They notified the police officers that were there that they had an intruder. They notified the police officers what classroom the person was in. He was isolated, and he was quickly identified.
Well, initially, police said there were 2 suspects involved in the carjacking, where they also, according to police, assaulted that driver. But so far tonight, no word about another arrest. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Cold start coming for tomorrow morning. Take a look. Even a freeze warning for portions of northwestern Howard County late night tonight into early tomorrow. Late night drop into the 20s to around 30. Areas of northwestern Howard County and even areas north into Carroll County, Harford County, as well as Baltimore County. But their growing season hasn't begun yet. So if you have any plants out that need to be covered over or brought back inside, do it tonight with temperatures about 30 to 35. Coldest north and west, eastern shore low to mid 30s. And it looks like low to mid 30s west of the city as well. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to let you know how it's looking for the cherry blossoms down in D.C. Almost past their peak in a couple of minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a convicted sex offender living next door to a school It's happening in Maryland. In Fox 45 News Project, Baltimore investigates why it's allowed and what's being done in Annapolis to protect children. The future of state-funded scholarships for low-income families seeking a say in their child's education. Educators, parents, and students push to ensure the program survives. And still ahead in Sports Unlimited, it's the eve of opening day for the Baltimore Orioles. We have everything you need to know as the O's get ready to play the Red Sox and the expectations of this new season.
How can a sex offender convicted of manufacturing child pornography be living next to a school? It sounds outrageous, but it is happening right here in Maryland.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the next few weeks in Annapolis will determine if it continues.
Your example was terrifying about the child pornographer living across from the school.
Lisa Jordan is the executive director of the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault.
We really need to do a better job about supervising sex offenders.
Sex offenders living just feet from schools.
Jordan is reacting to this Project Baltimore investigation, which found dozens of registered sex offenders just in Baltimore County living so close to schools they can see the school property from their properties. Some live directly across from the school, including multiple Tier 3 offenders, a designation reserved for those convicted of the most severe sex crimes.
That's concerning.
But Jordan says there's currently a bill going through Annapolis that would strengthen Maryland's laws when it comes to supervising many sex offenders.
That's what we need. Actual individual plans that help keep us safe and keep our kids safer.
Maryland has no laws restricting where a sex offender can live. Opponents of residency restrictions point out that sex offenders often know their victims before assaulting them. And if sex offenders can't live, say, 1,000 feet from a school or daycare, then there's very few places where they can live. That can drive sex offenders underground, which makes them harder to track.
And the last thing we want is to lose track of sex offenders. We need to keep track of them.
Surrounding states, such as Virginia and Delaware, have passed restrictions on where sex offenders can live. In Virginia, a sex offender who is 3 years older than the victim cannot move within 500 feet of a school or daycare. In Delaware, if any sex offender moves within 500 feet of a school, it's considered a felony. In Pennsylvania, a sex offender may be restricted from living near a school or daycare under a court order, or if they are under supervision by parole or probation, where a specific restriction designates where the offender may reside.
This is a necessary bill to protect our children.
In Annapolis, last week, the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee debated Senate Bill 57, which increases the number of sex offenders in Maryland who would be supervised for life by parole and probation. Right now, many sex offenders are supervised by the state. If their supervision restricts their residency, that restriction would end when their supervision ends. If an offender is supervised for life, the restrictions would remain. In other words, a sex offender convicted of manufacturing child porn may not be allowed to ever live next to a school.
We need to have more supervision and more flexibility to really make sure that what we're doing with sex offenders is not driving them underground and it's keeping our kids safe.
But the bill, which passed unanimously in the House, received some pushback in the Senate, specifically from State Senator Jill Carter, who represents Baltimore City.
I do have a level of discomfort with a lifetime supervision. We already have a lifetime registry, right? Like they're already registered. The registries are public. Everybody can look it up. Everybody knows. If you violate the registry, like if you fail to register, that's a crime.
But supporters of the bill, like Jordan, say the registry alone is not enough. It only alerts the public of where a sex offender lives. It doesn't necessarily help keep the public safe, according to Jordan, especially if a person convicted of manufacturing child porn can still live next to a school.
They need to be supervised, and they certainly shouldn't be living in front of schools.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
And this afternoon, Senate Bill 57 was voted on by the Judicial Proceedings Committee. It received a favorable recommendation with an added amendment to the bill.
Baltimore police officer Maxwell Dundor has been convicted of second-degree assault for a 2020 incident. A police report claims Dundor was chasing a 17-year-old stolen car suspect. Police say when Dundor caught the teen, he slammed him face down into the concrete, then wrapped his arm around the teen's neck. Dundor apparently told the teen he'd choke him out if he didn't stop resisting before releasing him. Dundor faces up to 10 years in prison during sentencing in June. Emotional moments from Nashville, Tennessee, as an entire city gathers to mourn the victims of a school shooting. How they were remembered as the investigation continues.
Baltimore City Council members plan on spending money collected from taxes on legal marijuana sales, the reparations that could soon be put to a vote, and who would get the potential payouts.
And if you're planning on going and checking out the cherry blossoms in D.C. for tomorrow, after a day today a little bit milder, this should say D.C. blossoms Thursday, not Wednesday. Of course, Wednesday's already passed. 9 a.m. we're at 36, 44 at noon, and Wednesday highs, actually Thursday highs, I should say, at 5 p.m. about 50 degrees. But the breezes pick up into the weekend, going to blow all those blossoms down. So get out there, check it out while you can. I'm going to let you know how the rain chances going to react in a couple of minutes.
Taking a look now at the Fox Box. Top left, a Baltimore City Council committee is planning to vote on a bill to create a commission to reinvest funds collected from taxes on the sale of recreational marijuana. The funding would go to minority communities affected by the war on drugs. A committee vote on the bill is currently scheduled for April 25th, but council members acknowledge revisions are needed.
On the top right, a California public school district is looking to be the first to offer reparation payments to black students whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States. It's still unclear where the funding for the payments would come from. A list of funding sources is expected by January.
Bottom left, a Pennsylvania congressman is accusing Interior Secretary Deb Haaland of relying too much on China, saying China accounts for more than 60% of rare earth mining. A spokesperson for the department says it is a false suggestion.
On the bottom right, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is inviting Chinese President Xi Jinping to Ukraine. The two haven't spoken since Russia invaded Ukraine. China rolled out a plan earlier this year calling for a ceasefire and an end to Russian sanctions. Next on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock, a boost for Boost. Educators, parents, and students fight to preserve a youth scholarship program on the governor's chopping block.
Alderman Gay, you're wasted.
No, I'm not.
You are.
A bizarre exchange in the middle of an Annapolis City Council meeting. You've got to see what led up to that accusation from the mayor and what happened next.
From Washington to Nashville and across the country, calls for action after another mass shooting. I'm Scott Thuman on Capitol Hill with a look at how training and new technology could make a difference.
We are following three big stories tonight at 10:30. A moment of peace in Nashville as the community pushes for change following a devastating school shooting.
A family is in mourning as a grandmother is shot and killed while attending a funeral in Prince George's County. They share their heartbreaking story. And less than 2 weeks remains in this year's legislative session in Maryland as time is running out for a decision on the Boost program. Governor Wes Moore wants to phase out the program designed to help low-income families send their children to private or parochial schools.
But the program has a vocal group of supporters.
I think we should put way more money into it rather than cutting the money.
And when we have so many low-income families who are struggling, why should they be limited in their options?
Tell them I want to tell everybody needs an opportunity. Yeah. Man would never.
Well, now supporters are renewing calls to keep the program fully funded. Fox 45's Olivia Dance has the story.
Many are against making cuts to the Boost program and are now calling on lawmakers to make sure that the governor's proposal doesn't go through.
To go ahead and cut a program like that would be devastating.
The Boost program provides scholarships to low-income families to send their children to private or parochial schools. There are currently about 3,200 scholarship recipients in the state.
It's important because you need the education.
I'm so blessed and glad that I have a Boost scholarship. Without that, I don't know where I would be, what school I would be at right now.
Giving children a choice and more options.
In today's day and age, children deserve as many options as they can have to succeed and have a productive life.
Mighty Maryland students.
Mighty Maryland students.
Rabbi Ariel Sadwin has joined hundreds across the state, hoping to convince lawmakers of the importance of the program. Last night, he sent a letter to his constituents frustrated with Annapolis.
So we're meeting with legislators who have usually been unsupportive of the program to try to convince them to understand the virtues and appreciate the virtues of the program.
Several lawmakers, including Democratic Senate President Bill Ferguson, support funding Boost.
In the nearly $7.5 billion that we spend on public education, $10 million on the Boost program doesn't seem like a heck of a lot. So, I think there's reason to think that we can do both and not just either or.
Governor Moore says he doesn't want to see public dollars go to private schools, but Baltimore pastor P.M. Smith says it's important to note that the governor attended private school himself.
Why deny inner city young people the same opportunity that he had?
And critics argue public funds go to private endeavors all the time, like housing vouchers and sports teams.
People who are recipients of public dollars are using it for a host of different private purposes, and an opportunity like this to take the public dollars, a small amount of public dollars, and use it for private education to give them an opportunity so that they could be on a positive trajectory in their lives. There's no better investment than that.
I reached out to the governor for a statement on Boost, and his office said that he's made it clear that public schools are a priority by investing a record $8.8 billion in K-12 education for Maryland public schools. Now, the quote continues on, and you can read that full statement on our website at foxbaltimore.com. But for now, reporting in Baltimore, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News is helping you make your voice heard. Scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to our website where we put together a list of email addresses and phone numbers for your state senators and delegates, including Senate President Ferguson and House Speaker Jones.
The Senate Executive Nominations Committee voted today to advance Governor Wes Moore's nominee to lead the Maryland State Police. Roland Butler's nomination passed unanimously, despite some questions about several problems within the state police department, including civil rights concerns while Butler was with MSP. There are also questions about the timeline of Butler's nomination. We don't know when the governor started talking with Butler about the job. State law requires a cooling off period between retirement and coming back to work to receive a pension. You can find more on the questions surrounding Roland Butler on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
A deadly fire in Garrett County destroys a home. The Maryland State Fire Marshal releasing these photos this afternoon. This is what is left of the home that went up in flames around 9 this morning. It happened on Upper Green Glade Road in Swanton. According to the fire marshal, one person was killed in this fire. The cause is still under investigation.
Former College Park Mayor Patrick Woyan has been indicted on 40 counts of possession of child pornography and 40 counts of possession with intent to distribute. According to court documents, the former mayor uploaded child pornography to social media in early January. He resigned in late February. Investigators also found dozens of videos of young boys saved at his home.
In Annapolis, last night's city council meeting got heated when one resident's public testimony ran up against the timer. Mayor Gavin Buckley and Alderman DeJuan Gay got into an argument when Buckley leveled this accusation.
Skipper's Lane rights of way. Well, my 3 minutes were delayed by your
ruling of the chair, Mr. City Attorney. I appeal the ruling of the chair.
Okay, Alderman Gay, you're wasted.
No, I'm not.
You are.
No, and it's inappropriate for you to say that.
You know you are.
It is incredibly inappropriate for you to say that.
It's true.
It is incredibly inappropriate for you to say that. Please take back the statements that you made on the council floor.
I will take it back to get on with the meetings.
Well, that arguing went on for almost 4 minutes. Eventually, the meeting did get back on track, but the two clashed on multiple issues, in particular, landlord-tenant relations and rent.
A Prince George's County family is mourning tonight. Their grandmother in town for a family funeral is shot and killed. Brad
Bell with our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. has the latest on the investigation.
The pain being felt by the Martinez family has reached the limit of their ability to cope.
It's just a lot to process, and it's a lot that we still have to process. So it's very unreal. It very much feels like a movie.
Daniela Martinez explaining for the family that the nightmare began last week when she lost her brother Moses in a car crash in Alexandria. Their grandmother, her mom's mother, Lydia Cabrillo, arrived from El Salvador Monday night to attend Moses' funeral. But last night, the 62-year-old grandmother was killed when two people in a car opened fire on the car she was riding in, right in front of the Martinez's Capitol Heights home.
Last night, she came to stay here for me because she wanna sleep over here and support me for I lose my son. And she's not here no more.
I lost my son. Now I lost my grandma. I can't understand, you know.
Today, just steps from the grieving family, crime scene investigators look for evidence along Drum Avenue. A witness telling us off camera he saw two males shooting from a car. Sources say police don't know yet why the gunmen were shooting, but they don't believe the 62-year-old grandmother was the intended target. This family of immigrants saying they now feel El Salvador is safer than where they now live.
It's honestly I can't. What was the purpose? Like, that's my main question. Like, where did this come from?
Let us never forget their names. Evelyn Dykers, Haley Scruggs, William Kinney, Cynthia Peake, Catherine Kuntz, and Mike Hill.
The city of Nashville, Tennessee gathers tonight to honor the victims, 3 students and 3 staff members killed in the shooting this week. On hand were numerous local and state officials, but also First Lady Jill Biden. Among the people who attended, anyone watching and are asked to do something kind and help one another as each mourns differently. Well, tonight it's not just how a shooting like this happened, but why. And so far, police say the motive for the alleged shooter, 20-year-old Audrey Hell, eluded them.
The suspect actually went to that school, and as I said once before, that there may be some resentment, but we haven't been able to confirm that.
In Washington, there's a push to do what's necessary to prevent another mass shooting, from gun control to expanded mental health sources.
Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us how training and new technology can make a critical difference in police response times.
Amid the tragedy in the Nashville school shooting, early assessments are police response was quick and organized, a contrast to what was seen in the Uvalde, Texas shooting that ended 21 lives. In Nashville, a 14-minute timeline. In Texas, police waited 77 minutes before confronting the shooter.
One took action and one didn't. From the beginning of the body cam footage, they had a key to the door. They knew what they were